See, I don't really know what AI does these days, you see. So I would say an area of expertise has to do with whether these devices actually do what we do. I don't think they do, because they're not conscious. I don't think they will ever become conscious by virtue of being computers in our current sense of the word. I don't know if that's an answer to your question. It doesn't mean that they won't be better than us.
The biggest risk of AI development is?
Yes. So I have nothing against that. That's fine. I think there is a risk involved here. Part of the risk is people thinking that they're actually...
That there is a conscious.
They're conscious, yes. There might be an even more of a risk if they were conscious. You see, maybe one could understand what's involved in consciousness and develop some kind of device. I'm not calling it a computer because, in my view, it would not be a computer. It would be something else, some device which is conscious. And since I believe consciousness is a physical process, I don't think we understand it. I think it involves the collapse of the wave function. That's partly a negative conclusion from, I don't see it anywhere else. But the collapse of the wave function is very mysterious and involves certain retro-causal things, which are a little bit puzzling. I think the way that time works is not so clear when you're talking about, but there are certain things which are in contradiction, you almost say, with ordinary causality. It's not so much that they are, it's that you have to have different concepts of what you mean by reality. And there are two concepts which I've tried to separate from each other. One is classical reality, and the other is quantum reality. Now, classical reality is the sort of thing we normally talk about. The main difference, I'm saying, is you can ask the system, say, if I take this glass, and I can ask the glass, I can say, hello, glass, what shape are you? And don't do it that way, but I say, okay, what shape is the glass? And I say, oh, it's got a round top, it's more or less cylindrical.
And that's the classical world.
It's classical reality.
Yeah.
Now, quantum reality is more like, well, Einstein had a nice criterion, but he didn't call it quantum reality. I'm calling it quantum reality. This was, how do you know that the wave function is real? Is the wave function of a particle real or not? And a good example of this is the spin of a spin-half particle. Now, the spin of a spin-half particle is a quantum thing. Now, can you ask the system, hello system, which way are you spinning? It doesn't. It looks at you blankly and says, I don't answer questions like that. Ask me a different kind of question, please. The right thing to do is you say, okay, particle, is your spin in that particular direction? You see, the spin has an axis. Mm-hmm. The way that spin works, for a spin-half particle, it has a particular axis. That's how you describe the quantum state of a spin-half particle. It has one particular direction, and it spins about that direction. Now, can you ascertain that direction? No, you can't. It's quantum reality. You cannot ascertain quantum reality. You can only confirm it. So I like to use those two words, ascertain. I can ascertain the shape of this glass. That's classical reality. I can only confirm quantum reality. I can, if I think I know which direction it's spinning. I said, yeah, I've got my calculation done. I said, you've done this, blah, blah, blah. Yes, it's probably by now spinning that way. I say, hello, state. I think you're spinning that way. Have I got it right? And if I have got it right, it says yes with certainty. So that was Einstein's criterion. So if you can confirm with certainty that then it gives you an element of reality. He called it an element of reality. I'm calling it an element of quantum reality. Classical reality is the other kind. You can ascertain classical reality. You can only confirm quantum reality. And you need those two ideas, and you need to separate them. And quantum reality behaves very peculiarly. It actually behaves retro-causally, what you might think. There are these experiments with, I think you talk about the Nobel Prize, the one before that one, to Zeilinger and people about these, I think EPR type experiments. I can't quite remember what they got it for, but it's something like that. You have these effects which seem to affect the instantaneous. You see, you share a spin between Alice and Bob, and Alice and Bob originally have a spin 0, and their spins are opposite. So if Alice's spin is this way, Bob's is this way. Now suppose Alice measures her spin and she finds it to be that way. Retrocausally, along the past light cone, so it's not just simultaneous, worse than that. It's into the past, but not faster than the light could go from this one to this one. It's a strange way around. But retrocausally, it becomes the opposite of Alice's measurement. Bob can't ascertain it, so she can't send a signal faster than light because he can only confirm it. He doesn't know which way it is. So you need that idea to make sense of these EPR, Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen type experiments, which I think, I'd have to check exactly what the Nobel Prize was the year before this one. But I think it was to do with that. That's a very important and fascinating discovery. But to understand what's going on, I think the best way to do it is using quantum reality. And you certainly can't send a signal faster than light by these means, but you can retrocausal backwards faster than light, or not as fast, almost as fast as light, backwards, if it's only quantum reality.
As long as we don't understand how quantum world work, we cannot replace it into
I
the
think it's not
digital
as
space.
bad as that. You see, don't understand is saying, rather trying to put it into a classical perspective. We can understand the mathematics of it, and we can get used to it, okay? And that is involving an understanding. If somebody asks me a question, I may not understand it that well, but I could do my best, and I might understand the quantum mechanics well enough to give the answer that quantum mechanics would say. Now that means understanding. Sure, it's an understanding of what's going on. You know, there's this famous comment, was it? Nobody understands quantum mechanics, was that? Understanding doesn't require it to be a classical understanding.
We are determined by the nature to understand the classical world. Quantum world is indeterministic and it's ununderstandable for our mind a little bit. You need to use the formulas to try to understand the quantum world.
I think it's unfortunate to use the word understanding and limit it. You can say, I don't know what word to use, but if understanding in the sort of classical sense, and that fails. Yes, that does fail. But it's not lack of understanding. You get the picture, and you can see, oh yes, I know how to make the predictions in quantum mechanics work, and they can be quite yes/no predictions. Some of the predictions don't have to be just probabilities. So I think the view is it gets sort of mixed up with the idea, oh, you only know the probabilities or something. I think that's misleading. These things are puzzling not just because they're probabilistic. They are sometimes just probabilistic, but that's what makes them consistent by having them only probabilistic. But the things which I find most fascinating about quantum mechanics are not probabilistic things. They're like these EPR effects. Sure, it's probabilistic if you ask somebody to make a measurement and it's only a quantum reality that he's trying to make a classical reality measurement. He's only going to get a probability answer. I just think one has to separate the quantum reality from the classical reality and realize that the quantum reality behaves differently. Yeah.
Fully.
But it doesn't mean it's beyond understanding. I don't know if that's the way people use the word understanding often in that way. I think that's a bit misleading.